Welcome to Transformational Pathways, a podcast created by Toastmasters District 46 in the greater New York area, where we share conversations from influencers within the Toastmasters community and people whose lives have positively transformed by walking down the Toastmasters path. Whether you're just getting started in your career, have had recent career changes, or you're navigating different languages, we're here to help you build confidence by discovering new tools, overcoming your fears to find your voice, and engaging in a thriving community. Enjoy today's episode.
Hello. Welcome to another episode of Toastmasters District 46 Transformational Pathways podcast. I'm your host, Scott Mason, and walking the pathway with us today is our guest, Patricia Kidwingira. Patricia, you have had Toastmasters leadership roles since 2014, and you're currently the district director from District 46, which is Greater New York City. You are also an internal audit manager for UNICEF, which is truly one of the most impactful NGOs on the planet. Patricia, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Scott.
Let's start at the beginning, Patricia. For someone who knows nothing about Toastmasters, what exactly is the district director? What does that role do?
Scott, Toastmasters district director is somebody who actually oversees an entire management of a district. So we are talking about in District 46 around 4,000 members, 116 clubs, so which is currently a big operations. And when you think of it, you also manage a number of officers. And the beautiful part of it is that all of us are giving back to the community, helping people to improve their public speaking, communicate better, especially now that we are all in a virtual world. We need to stay connected. So what District 46 is doing is really to try to find ways to connect in this virtual environment.
I love it. And thank goodness we've got someone who's as committed to that workload as you are, because it is a lot of work, but it's also a lot of impact. Now, the one thing everyone says about New York is that no one is really from New York, except maybe a few people that are the natives. But you and I are both people that are not from New York. In fact, if I remember correctly, you're not even from the U.S., are you?
No.
Yeah, that's what I seem to recall. There's got to be a story here. How did you end up leading the top district of Toastmasters in the United States after being born in Africa? What brought you here?
What brought me here, Scott, is that when you think of Toastmasters, it's really a learning organization. So it's an organization that helps you to grow. So when I start my leadership journey, I discover that if you really want to learn how to move, change people's life, you have not to be only at listening and helping, but also to be influencing at the top level. So what Toastmaster is doing is really to empower people, to manage, to be a leader, to conduct meetings, to have those big events. You learn how to train people. You have those TLI. And it doesn't really matter what you do in your personal life. So you have an opportunity given to so many people. Coming from Africa, living in New York, one of the things that I realized when I start my officers, district leaders job is that really I can give back a lot, because all organizations are looking for leaders. We are looking for people with the core, the commitment, and who really uphold Toastmaster core values. So when you think of it, we are talking about respect, integrity, service, excellence. And those 4 elements is what you have in any organization. And when you think of it, New York is like any other. any other district, we do have multiple, it's a melting pot. So you have to keep that core values in everybody's, we have to visualize it when we talk to people in the city.
I love it. Yeah. Before we talk about that in a little bit more depth, let's step back a bit, find out a little bit more about you. Where in Africa are you from? What was it like growing up there? Tell us a little bit about your background there.
Yeah, I was born in Brussels, and then I went to live in my home country, which is Burundi and Rwanda. And those two countries, when you think of it, we call them the heart of Africa or the Switzerland of Africa. So it's a small, tiny countries, two of them, very hilly places. And we were a Belgian colony. So when I grew up in a school at home, and then I went in a boarding school that was managed by nuns. So I have these nuns school background. So we had learned to value work, and then because of the relationship we have with the Belgian, I got a scholarship to go to study in Brussels. And then I went back home to start working. So I went back. My first experience of work was in Brussels, but then when I went back, I started working in an audit with my father. And then I started because at that time it was during the war. So I never dreamed of living outside. I dreamed of helping my country. But because of the context, I decided to go out of the country. And that's how I started my international career. And what motivated me all the time was to see how powerful education can be. So for me, I studied econometrics. I taught at university. I was a lecturer, and I was teaching. And I believe in the power of education, and it's something that I carried with me. So that was really how, at the end, I end up in the US and at the UN. It was the path of keeping growing and then helping the world in the different ways.
Now, I've got to ask, what did you teach?
I was teaching econometrics in Burundi at university. And then, mind you, I was teaching local planning in agronomy at university. So I was an assistant, so I was not really the teacher, but planning has always been something, like modeling, doing more statistics. And then trying to visualize what you want to see and then see how people can attain what you have said. So that's when you will think of audit. Is the same thing, is that you have an idea of a system and you want to make sure that we have all the required controls.
I love it. What was it like? Just take us there. The minute you came to New York City.
To be honest with you, the minute I came here, it was in December. In December, I arrived in New York, and I lived my first. I lived downtown, close to.
Okay, well, that is downtown.
Close. I was in the middle of Little.
Oh my! That must have been amazing. Did you eat a lot?
During Christmas time.
Oh my God.
So it was like, how can I sleep in this city? How can I work? I had an apartment on Mulberry Street, and it was really busy. I think the cities go to sleep around 4 a.m. And that's why you have the garbage collector. So I was like, how can I survive in this city? So I didn't know that will make 1 year or more. I was not sure how I would survive. And then it reminded me when I was a student. Because you see, when I started my international career, I was in Africa. And I had all the gravitas that you can have as an international civil servant in an African country. Coming back in the US, living in Mulberry Street, not having such a big house, people working for you. It was like going back to school, my early days when I was young. And I felt that I was really young. And the beautiful side of it, I moved after a certain time. I came closer to the UN in a much more quiet place. But still in the city that never sleeps. And what I learned was that it was the most beautiful discovery moment, because I went, as you know, there's a lot of restaurant. There's a lively young people in a Soho. You have a lot of energy there. And I realized that it was one of the best time, actually, think of it, where I have a much fun discovering and then seeing the beautiful side of New York. That right now, when you work a lot, taking a different, looking at the city differently, you will lose that kind of energy that you have seen going to different places in Chinatown, different ice cream. That was New York that I discovered at early time.
And if you were discovering some good ice cream, then that really was discovering New York. So let me ask you, how'd you end up involved with Toastmasters?
Actually, I was not interested in Toastmasters when I was approached by a Toastmaster friend of mine at the United Nations. But it was after a certain time that I discovered that I need to connect better. And I have done so many trainings, so many classes on communication, on presentation. And I felt that I missed something that I want to discover, the connection. How can I keep upgrading my skills? And when I joined Toastmaster at that time, because I had one of my colleagues and friends, we lived together here, she continuously come and say, "Are you ready to come?" So when I finally said yes, I have never really, I'm still thanking her for having that idea, because it's something that I needed.
Tell me, what was it like going to that first Toastmasters meeting? What club was it, by the way?
It was World Voices at the United Nations. It was one of the best clubs. It was before, when you say almost 10 years ago, it was before we start with these new security, increased security. So we used to go to the those big conferences room at the UN. And then we had an opportunity to speak, and I could visualize myself as speaking in a big audience with so many cameras. And I always say that the things that attract people the most is how we are being welcomed. And the Toastmaster teach you how to welcome people. And when you take leadership role, that welcoming to help people to see themselves, to be in a space where they can speak, they can learn, they can make mistakes without being judged. That's what we offer. And that's what I received in my first meeting.
That is everything, isn't it? Especially, you're stepping into a group. You don't know anybody, or you may just know one or two people. No one wants to be treated in a way that's all cold and unfriendly or overly officious. That warmth is, to me, one of the hallmarks of Toastmasters. Yes. How did you end up deciding to take on leadership roles?
It's one of the aspects that Toastmaster give us is really to step up, and then leave behind our misgiving, I may say. Because I always ask myself, because I travel a lot, Scott, as you know, I have been in more than almost 100.
It's overwhelming to even think about.
With my work. But I ask myself, when you see poor people who have less than what you have, trying to give you a little bit that they have, trying to make you feel happy. When I go in difficult places, I always feel happy to see that at the end of the day, we are all human. Our core humanity is to welcome people, help each other. And I always ask myself, can I do the same? You know, you go in a place where they have almost nothing and they give you all the food that they have. And I ask myself, will I be able to give back the way they are doing? Will I be able to invite those people in my house like they did? So I start to see how I can give back in the community I live in here in the US. And I start to see it in a way that it's not only to learn, but it's also to see that when we talk about a company club performing, can we reach that performance? So it was more challenging, and it really matches with what I do, but it's also that volunteering aspect where you do things that nobody will recognize or give you anything was really appealing to me, because I was like, how can I push people to give back with me and then share the passion? And Scott, that's why you are here with me trying to launch the podcast, because you pushed me to agree with that. And it's something that you discover in Toastmasters.
It really is. And that goes right as to my next question. I'll just throw it out there. I'll never forget the conversation we had where we first began to talk about this. One of the things that impressed me as a club president and an area director, which are levels down in the leadership structure of Toastmasters, was that you were talking about the direction of the district moving in a way that was visionary. And I have heard other folks just whispering behind your back about how you are a transformational leader in this district. To you, what makes someone a transformational leader?
Interesting question. When you think about education, learning, you have to think what I learn today may not be useful to young people who will be leading in 10 years. So you have to agree that things that you have grown with may not be what we want to see in the future. So the transformation is really to see that maybe what we consider as useful for us will not be useful for my youngest niece and nephew. So you have to start to see how the world will be and how you can help them, how you can help the young people to join. So that was, to me, something that I keep asking myself, how we can get new people joining Toastmasters. How can we attract more people?
It's an interesting mindset that you're describing, though. I've got to say, listening to this, once people achieve a certain level of success, it's easy for the mind to say, okay, this is what I've done before. It's led to success. This is what has brought my organization to the level that it's at. Why should I change? So what got you in a place where you were saying to yourself, I'm open to shifting the mindset of this organization? How did you keep yourself from just sort of resting on your laurels?
I discovered quickly that before the current situation of the pandemic and staying home and then having this difficult conversation that we have in the US, I discovered early on in my leadership growth in Toastmasters that we really have to understand what the core value means to every leader. And if you have that as your basis to grow, you could see how you can help people to really understand the service, the servant leader. And when you say servant leader, it should not be a slogan. It should be like, yes, I am here to help you grow. And it comes with a lot of gratification, but it also comes with a lot of challenges. And one of my mentor told me one day that to be a leader required courage, not only to have the integrity, respect, and service, but you need to have courage. And it's something that I see more right now during the COVID time, because when you think of Toastmasters, Scott, you are a club president. So it's easy for you to say, I'm President Distinguished. I got so many members. I have a program that is really lively. People love to come to your club. When I was a club president in my club, we had a friendship that to me was one of the best moments. As a club president, my VP education got married in Italy.
Wow.
And my speech, we had the speech for Toast.
Yes.
So that speech, I did it in Italy. The groom was Italian. My friend VPE was Japanese. So I had with me an evaluator, a timer. And then I had my speech in Japanese, Italian, and English. So I have to learn all the ceremonial part of it, in addition to visit a very beautiful place. So when you think of all those that we learn a lot in a moment of enjoyment, to me, it's all those encapsulation of a new type of leadership that I try to experiment, because we are in an experiential learning in Toastmasters. So that's to me was guiding me as I continue to grow in Toastmasters. And I hope you will be doing the same in the near future.
Don't ever count it out. Yeah, I've got to just say, in response to that wedding story, those that listen to or watch this podcast are going to hear some amazing stories involving Toastmasters and the friendships and the relationships that they have made or make. But that one is truly unique. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's going to be hard for folks to top that, Patricia. If there is one story that captures the way Toastmasters has transformed your life, what would that story be?
A story that really transformed my life because of Toastmaster was my winning speech in a speech contest.
Tell us all.
So my winning speech at the speech contest was the power of education. And I mentioned Nelson Mandela, who say that education is the most powerful weapon that can change the world. So it really resonates with my life, my story. And when you think of Toastmasters, my club was behind me, helping me to articulate the information. I had a lot of story to tell, but they really managed to really help me to refine my message to the audience, that I believe that I connected with many members in the district, that they get to know me, they get to understand that for me, education is really a most powerful weapon. And then to translate with what we do. Because here, again, we are learning. I'm learning to do podcast with you. So really, that's really the core that I would say, that having a team that gives you feedback on how to communicate better, on how to tell your stories, on how to share your ideas with the world, is something that you will see has been helping so many people. And when you think of Toastmasters in New York, I attended 2 clubs downtown. They were using Toastmasters to start to practice how to sell their product.
Wow.
And they were all young people in a bank. So I understand that, because when I came back to my club at the U1, we were not talking about our work, because it was a free space, open space, but we agree that we are not going to talk about things that are linked to our work, it was like we come to practice to say different things. But discovering young talent people using Toastmaster to be able to sell their product was another aspect that shows that, in fact, is a good learning.
I always say, if you can sell something, A, you'll never starve, but B, the possibilities for you are limitless, because in one way or another, as we advance in our careers, whether it's in business or in government or in the NGO sector, we're always having to sell something. It might be ourselves for a promotion. It might be an idea. Do you feel in a way that you've developed as a salesperson by being in Toastmasters, even if sales isn't your profession?
Actually, I don't think that I would say that I have become a salesperson. I discovered that I'm a salesperson because of Toastmasters. Being club president, you will see that you try to attract members. You try to do some event, open houses, invite great speakers to come.
Yes.
All those things actually help you to promote Toastmasters. And then when I realize in my life what I have been doing, I've been a kind of salesperson. I like my work, which, we don't sell audit. And when you think of auditors, you don't think of me, I believe. But I am so passionate with my work that each time that I go around, I try to get new people joining me. And it has been, even in my work, a way to promote audit. I was the one who introduced the first meeting on the internal audit in my country.
Wow.
Many years ago. So we tried to create a chapter. It didn't really sustain because at that time it was just before the war. But I asked to introduce risk management with the Institute of Audit in Burundi, and I have to get all the approval from my office, so I can do some activity during my holidays to really engage with people from my home country. And it was interesting because when we discussed, we realized, I told them that I'm still practicing things that I learned when I was home, because I was also an auditor in Burundi. So that's some of those elements that I discovered that I have been a salesperson for a long time.
Right now, I'll bet you there is a young girl in Burundi or Brussels or anywhere else in the world where there are Toastmasters chapters, and it's pretty much everywhere in the world. And she's looking up at the stars and she's dreaming about her future. She might not even be able to imagine living the sort of life and providing the sort of leadership that you have. Would you say anything to such a young girl? What would that be?
Never be limited with what you don't know. What you know will allow you to grow, and never accept any things that stops you, because we never know where life will take us. And Toastmaster can open up your communication, your contact network, your growth. So it's one of the easy way to get the networking you need at a very reduced cost. So to me, it's something that when I see Toastmaster clubs growing in the world, I can share with you two experiences that I had. I visited two clubs when I was traveling, and I started a club in my home country. It's the first club in Burundi. To really give that opportunity to young people, exactly as you say. And it's hosted at the university. And I hope that they will still listen to me and then see that it's possible. Because we offer a network that really has no boundary today.
That is amazing. And by the way, you've got to give a shout out. What's the name of that club?
Club Université du Lac.
Love it. I bet almost no one.
So I hope that they will listen to me and then they will keep growing. Yes.
I bet that is something about you almost no one listening to this or watching this knew. It's amazing. Patricia, you have been district director during a year. Let's keep it real. That has been unforgettable. What do you believe that your Toastmasters legacy will be?
This year has been really a very difficult year.
Yes.
And one of the positive aspects that I can say was that for me, I was able to connect more with District 46. I didn't travel for the first time for the entire year. I learned a lot about the community, what my members, my officers are going through. We lost many people. We lost family members. We lost brothers, fathers. We lost members. And it has not been easy to deal with, when you talk to people and they just lost their brother, their father. We, in District 46, as you see, the compassion, the connections, I think what we have seen was that in addition to the core values, compassion has been added to whatever we do. We have also tried to help each other. So when somebody asks you to help, to be there, not judging, but to have the presence. One of the things that I believe that District 46 in my mind was a great achievement was also to see that in addition to learn to communicate better, District 46 has really added a new club, which is a Rotary Toastmaster
Tell us about
club,
it.
which is a Goodwill Toastmaster club. And when you think of that club, Scott, it's a club. It's the member of the club are the district leaders, Rotary district leaders. And when you see what they do, they go out there in the community. They've been giving masks. They've been going around. They're really, when you see what they do, it was like, yes, we can also help you to be able to communicate better, to sell better what you do, because they are really close to the community. And then when my legacy, in addition to have that compassionate leadership growing, has been to be transformative in our communication. So when you see today what we have in terms of communication, we are on Instagram. We have newspaper. We are now going to start our podcasts. We are really using Facebook in a much more active way. LinkedIn. So we start to see that it's not, you see, it's a transformation in itself, because Toastmaster used to really thrive in being in those big hotels, being in front of a big group and then speak. That was one of our trademark. Now it's really to have these connection, maybe smaller, maybe bigger, on a virtual world. And then that's the future. So tomorrow after COVID, we may meet face to face, but we'll not go back full face to face. We still have to communicate using those new media. So the mouth to mouth today is on internet, and that's some of those tools that we are offering our members. And I'm really proud to see that young people are embracing Toastmaster today, because they want to show the connection. I'm learning myself Instagram. I never believe in pictures. I read a lot. One of the things that growing in a non school, I read a lot. One of my passion was really to read and then to get to know the world. Two books, I still read a lot. And then to see that now you have those talent, those people showing, I also like to hug people.
Me too.
So when you remove all those things, I was like, okay, now let me just learn how to connect in this new environment. And that's what we are doing.
Toastmasters is about speaking, and speaking is all about words. Do you have any last words that you want to share with us today, Patricia?
Let's continue to communicate. communication is critical. That's what helps to reduce differences, to get to understand each other. Let's also meet somewhere when we start to have argument, because today we find that people are staying in their position and don't try to really discuss and then have a good argument. When I try to convince you to join me and you convince me to join you, it should not be a tug of war. It should be a communication that shows that we have a sound message that you can follow, or you have a sound message that I should follow. So communication words are what makes us different than plants. Today is a Earth World Day, and we have to protect the planet because the planet cannot speak. So our way to communicate can really change the world and for the better.
It is hard to think of a message that is more timely and urgent than that. Thank you so much. Patricia, it's been great having you on the show today. Thank you for joining us and for sharing your story. For those of you who are listening or watching, if you enjoyed today's episode, be sure and subscribe and leave a review or comment. Also, don't forget to follow District 46 on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And if you're new to Toastmasters, check out Toastmasters46.org. That's Toastmasters46.org to learn more about us or visit one of our clubs. Toastmasters is where leaders are made.
Thank you so much for joining us on Transformational Pathways. If you enjoyed today's episode or got anything out of it, please rate, review, and subscribe. And if you're interested in learning more about Toastmasters District 46, check out the link in the show notes below.